Uh, So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Greater Miami Expressway Agency December Board Meeting. I would like to call our meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. And I would like to ask Board Member Miller to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Uh, Now we'll ask our corporate board secretary to conduct a roll call of the board members.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Board Member Blanco,
Present.
Board Member Miller,
Present.
Board Member Peterman,
Present.
Board Member Rigaud, Treasurer Pages,
Present.
Vice Chair Perez,
Present.
Chair Cancio.
Present.
Everyone's present.
Next, we have declaration of voting conflicts. Board members, at this time, please advise if you have any conflicts based on the items on the consent agenda or regular agenda. Now, let's move to our public comment period for the agenda items. If a member of the public wishes to address the board, you will be given 3 minutes to speak. And I will now recognize Mr. Olson to identify those who have signed up to speak. Mr. Olson, you're recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
I think I just placed that public speaker card right in front of you.
Yes, you did.
I defer to you, ma'am.
So I will call Catherine Naranjo to come forward to speak. You have 2 minutes. Thank you. Good morning. Is your microphone on? Yes, it is. I don't think it's on. There
you go.
it is.
Okay, hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Naranjo. Thank you for having me here. The reason why I'm here today is because I would like to present the proposal, which I passed down to you. Didn't bring 5, but I brought one, and I hope to, you all can see it, and I have more information if you want. The reason why is because you guys have owned a land under the Expressway. Is in 13801 Northwest and 67th Avenue. That is currently a pathway that is a partnership between GMX and the city of Miami Lakes and Hialeah, because it's both like right where Hialeah ends and Miami Lakes starts. So we propose, after 2 years of meetings with directors of parks and recreations, with the city of Miami Lakes, Jeremy backed down. We also met with Williams from the city of Hialeah. We met with Chris Evans from the city of Miami. And we presented the project also to GMX, and we presented it to the Commissioner Rene Garcia. Everyone liked the project, because it's unutilized space, and we would like to make very good use of it, space for recreational sports, if that is allowed. And also the mayor of the city of Hialeah sent us a letter, right, agreeing and supporting our project on its extent. And we will hope that you all can see its great purpose today after this, review. And I have more information, as I said, for you to review after, if you would like. I'll say it to the whole meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Are there any other speakers of the public that would like to address us?
I don't think there are any other speakers, Madam Chair.
So next is approval of the meeting minutes from our October 1st, 2024 meeting. Board members, you've had an opportunity to review the minutes. Is there any discussion, or is there a motion for approval?
I make a motion.
I second.
Any discussion? So all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. Now we're on to the consent agenda, and I will ask our general counsel to read the consent items into the record. Jason?
Thank you,
you're
Madam Chair.
recognized.
There are two items on the consent agenda. The first item is procurement contract number IP 2501 for bond counsel consulting services, requesting approval of supplemental agreement number 1, which is for an additional $300,000 in spending authority for ongoing transition steps. The second item are the two GMX engineering policies. The two policies are the excess real property leasing policy and the surplus real property disposition policy. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So, board members, you've heard the consent agenda, and now it's time to advise if you have any items that you would like to pull from the consent agenda.
I don't necessarily want to pull. I do want to, if we can chat about item number
Yes.
2, if that's okay.
So let's make a motion and then we'll discuss.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? A second motion for approval of the consent agenda? Second. Okay, so now we can have a final discussion before we vote.
On, I don't have any issues with number 1. As I understand it, it's just an additional spending authority, so it's just a budgetary cap. On item number 2, which are the policies, we made some modifications to those policies. I just want to reinforce that those policies are related to GMX-owned properties and parcels, not those owned by FD&T in fee. I think we have to make some modifications to those two policies to differentiate between GMX purchased and owned and then those that are in fee. So we can do that in time.
So do you propose that we amend these policies now or just leave it open for amendment after?
I'm fine with the amendment that exists today, and then we'll amend it after once we can get some due diligence done on how we want to incorporate the FDOT language, just to make sure that there's coordination with the
course,
department
yes.
for future reference.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Board Member Miller. And I know we've had separate conversation on this, but now we're in a public setting. So the current, both policies do speak to GMX specific owned property. I think to Board Member Miller's point, we will specify separately how we deal with FDOT owned, because those are other properties that are not before the board today. So at a future meeting, we'll bring that back for future consideration, if
Yes.
needed.
Board Member Miller.
The only issue is some of the language says, it doesn't say owned, it says controlled, and there's could be interpretation on controlled based on our agreement between the parties. So I just want to clarify that in the future. That's all. But I'm fine with the way they're written now so that we can move forward with some of the other items we have on today's agenda.
So do we approve it subject to those changes?
No, I think we're just approving it with the understanding that there will be future changes.
That's fine with me.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Any other comments? Yes? No? Okay. So let's vote on the item. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Next, we will move to the regular agenda. The first item is GMX procurement contract number RFQ-25-02, engineering and testing services. And I will now recognize Mr. Olson to introduce the item.
Yes,
Mr.
good
Olson.
morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. This item is approval of a TEC recommendation, and I will ask our Director of Engineering and Emergency Management to provide additional detail.
Thank you. Good morning, board members. This item is for the material testing contract. It's a continuing service contract that we have for our construction projects. The current contracts have reached the end of their term capacities and renewals. So we went out, we did a procurement RFQ to select a new pool of contractors. The technical evaluation committee met last Monday, reviewed and ranked the proposals, and what we're presenting is the recommendation to approve and enter into contract with the highest ranked proposals WSP, Tierra South, and professional services industry. This would be for new contracts.
Any comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
Any discussion? Then vote on the item. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Motion passes. The final item on the regular agenda is item B, accepting the fiscal year 2024 external audit annual comprehensive financial report. And I would like to invite Mr. William Blend of MSL, or external audit firm, to present this item. Mr. Blend, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, board members, Bill Blend, your engagement shareholder. I thought I would change things up a little bit this year and let our senior manager, Eddie Castaneda, present to you the report for the fiscal year end, and then obviously we'll both be here for any questions.
Thank you.
This one? Thanks, Bill. Hi, board members. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Eddie Castaneda. I'm a senior audit manager on the engagement. So we're just going to go over quickly the highlights of the audit and the results of the audit. Or maybe not.
No, here.
You can use laptop.
I'll just use the laptop. That's fine. Here we go. So an audit overview. These are just kind of high level, the areas that we focus in during the audit of the authority. It's a financial statement focus. We do focus on the financial statements and all the significant transaction and account imbalances and classes of and types of transactions that go into that, producing that report. That's what we are responsible for, and that's what we audit to make sure that that document's free from any material misstatement. We also look at compliance with any material Florida laws or state statutes or anything, or the Florida Auditor General's guidance as well. We look into compliance with those type of rules and regulations. Did it move?
I'm sorry.
It's
working now.
Okay, got it. And as well, as part of that, we do look at information technology processes and procedures that the authority has in place as it relates to those financial statements. We're required to communicate certain communications to the board, which should have been part of the agenda packet, that you have that letter. In that letter, it just goes over these high-level bullet points, such as our responsibility versus management responsibility. Our responsibility is to audit the statements, and management's responsibility is to give us the information so that we could audit those statements. We also look at internal controls and compliance, any disagreements with management. We're happy to report that there were none, and that the individual assigned for oversight of the audit is Marie Schaefer, and the audit was delivered on time. So any questions on, if not, we'll go into the report. Well, the questions at the end. So the audit, sorry, we did issue a quote clean opinion, an unmodified opinion is what it is, so that it's the quote clean. We did issue a going concern paragraph because technically these financial statements are Miami-Dade Expressway Authority financial statements and information related to that entity. However, the going concern is saying that we're, in essence, don't expect this entity to exist beyond 12 months. And it's a reasonable assumption. Therefore, we just direct the readers to note that this entity might not be operating as such within 12 months. So that's just the only slight modification from a normal audit report. We also issue an audit report on our evaluation of the authority's internal control over financial reporting and compliance with other matters. We're happy to say that there was no findings in the procedures we've taken to issue that letter. We also have a AG required auditor's management letter. There were no findings related to that letter. And lastly, we have an independent accountant's report, which is we test compliance, the authority's compliance with certain investment Florida statute governing public entities' investments, and we're happy to report that there were no investment findings there. And then very quickly, we'll just do a brief, quick highlight financial information. As you can see, the current ratio is just, it's a good indicator to assess whether an entity can pay their upcoming short-term liabilities, short-term defined as 12 months or less. As you can see, it's at 3.8. Anything above 1 is typically good and is typically solid. So this indicates that the authority has more than enough funds on hand to address current short-term liabilities. The debt service coverage ratio is well above the 1.2 mandatory per the trust indenture. However, the board does have its own policy at 1.5, and it's above that as well. Operating income increased over prior year by about $7 million. Revenues were up as well, and lower non-operating expenses in the current year were related to, as you can see, from the 30 dropped to approximately 30. That is just because in this current year, the authority did not contribute to other governments and did not have any major disposals of assets. So therefore,
Can I just ask a question? You said it went up by 7 million. I see here 16 million. Where am I seeing the wrong
operating-
numbers?
The operating income. The
Got it.
middle one, yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. And other than that, I'll leave it up if any questions or comments.
Yes.
Okay.
Board Member Pages.
A couple of comments. First of all, I want to make it clear the auditors report to the board.
Absolutely.
Okay, because you didn't say that. I want to make sure for the public to understand that. I did speak directly with the board independently. To the board, to the auditors independently, and there were no findings. I want to make what I want to say is I want to commend the staff, Marie, her team, the executive director. This was a difficult year, a difficult process, and the findings were spectacular. They were beyond just good, because obviously often there's little things here and there. I mean, it was a clean audit, and I think that's a testament to our team. Thank you.
Absolutely. I was going to end with that. Thanking Marie and her team, because without her and her team, we can't get this issued timely.
It's amazing. Thank you so much. Yes.
And I just have one further
members.
question. Thank you
Miller.
for recognizing me. With the paragraph of ongoing concern, realizing we've now been aboard for over a year, clearly lots have happened in the last year. When is this related to our bonds and having those transferred over? I mean, what's the last going item that has to get cleaned up in order to move this to GMX?
Well, that's actually a very good point to make. And also, Eddie, I want Eddie to do the presentation, but I was going to try to hit on that. And we're certainly hoping that this will all be resolved by the time we come next year, that it'll be GMX's financial statements, and we'll be moving on. I think it's the bond indenture and the transfer agreement are the two biggest items, and those got to get resolved and transfer. We hope what will be concluded as a name change, but again, we're not attorneys, and that's a long process, over a year now. So our concern as the auditors, and that going concern is really related, will the MDX entity be in existence anymore? Certainly from a financial perspective, you guys have controls over the operations, the market's aware of that, so there's no issues that we see from that perspective, but things have to happen officially. So, counsel, if you...
Council's recognized.
If the notice of appeal is withdrawn and there's still some very productive communications leading in that direction, then that will completely put to rest any question. I mean, as a matter of law right now, and this is what lawyers can understand and explain, that right now the law of Florida is that MDX does not exist, and a circuit judge has ruled indeed that was a valid act of the Florida legislature. And everything transferred, including every contract, the transfer agreements, the bond, indenture, everything transferred by operation of law at that time, early last year, again transferred to this entity. So MDX does not, as a matter of law, exist. However, that question for some remains until the notice of appeal is withdrawn. So we're hopeful that'll happen soon.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No, we appreciate the help. I want to thank Maria as well, and certainly all staff. To the board member's point, you guys can, or we certainly can't do our audit without cooperation and help from staff, and it's really appreciated. Marie, we look forward to your future. Hopefully, you'll enjoy your time off, whatever you intend to do, and we know that you're in good hands going forward. So we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hearing no other questions, we'll move forward. We'll move to our executive director's report. Mr.
Madam
Ralston,
Chair.
you're recognized.
Madam Chair?
Do we need to accept
Yes,
the audit?
just to accept
Okay.
the report. Yes, ma'am.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. So now we'll move to the executive director's report. Mr.
Yes,
Ralston, you're
I'm
recognized.
ready. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Happy holidays. I'm happy to highlight just a few quick points. I know that you have the full report, and I think the bigger conversation on the properties, GMX-owned properties, we'll have that discussion momentarily. Let me just first, again, thank our staff, our contractors, our consultants, everyone for really making this first ribbon cutting event amazing, a major milestone for the agency. Again, I want to thank you, the board, Senator Avila, Senator Ana Maria Rodriguez, Miami-Dade County School Board member Danny Espino, and so many others who were able to make this event. This will be the first, as you know, of many milestones for the agency. Let me shift quickly to our board member ride-alongs. We now have 100% board participation. So as I've shared with each of you, we're now looking to do round 2 and round 3. Some of you have specifically talked about specific roadways or projects, so we heard you. We're working on that. I think all of you collectively have talked about visiting our Monroe County jurisdiction. So I'll say collectively, I think now that we've completed all 7, I think we as staff have landed on potentially doing one big trip to our Monroe County jurisdiction. So we'll work on scheduling, but we'll try to get that done soon. Now that the weather, I think, will be conducive for us going out to the area. So more to come as we'll be reaching out to each of you. I think this is a perfect segue for me to jump straight into financial stability. As you've heard from your outside auditors, GMX is financially stable. GMX is financially strong. So thank you to the MSL team. Thank you also to Marie and the finance team for also doing a great job delivering the end of year audit. The second point I just highlight is as we continue to transition, I know you heard some of those comments already. I think it's a perfect segue for me to publicly welcome a new addition to the table. She is our Director of Administration and Deputy CFO, Sandra Bridgman, who is a former ACM CFO, City of Miami CFO with various county departments as well. Happy to have her on board, and as I've shared with the board individually and collectively, both Sandra, Marie, and team, they have done an excellent job with this transition. And we still have Marie to December 31st. So we're going to hold on to Marie as long as we can. But I think you all know we continue to engage with all of our partners, Division of Bond Finance. We have posted the audit report, as you know, to the website. We also have shared with all the rating agencies as well. So Marie and her team did an awesome job ensuring that we maintain that coordination. Let me shift to communications and public engagement. Our toll relief marketing campaign, as many of you have asked, which is a board priority, is in progress. So you might have already heard or seen some digital ads, radio ads, print ads, and there's more to come. So just want to highlight that for the board. I know Madam Vice Chair, I think, who's listening, this has also been one of your key points, but did want to highlight that publicly for the board. Let me shift to due diligence efforts that you gave the green light to myself and the team to move forward on. We continue to move forward as it relates to the previously approved Kendall Parkway project. So all good news. As you know, our independent project cost estimates are in. The team is currently reviewing them. There are different assumptions that the outside consultants made that we need to just kind of go through, and we're doing those independent assessments now. Geotechnical exploration, you are aware, you awarded 3 contracts at the prior board meeting. They are still under negotiation, and we're still having one matter on a separate firm, but hopefully at the next meeting, we'll be able to report on the next stages for the geotechnical exploration work. The contamination assessment, that solicitation should be active soon. I'll just say within the next 2 weeks. I think that is what our procurement folks have said, and they're nodding. So you will see that solicitation. We are on track and on schedule. The bigger takeaway from this slide is I want to thank our partners. So FDOT has been phenomenal. The Assistant Secretary was just here, the Director of Environmental Management, and our District Secretary, also serving as a board member. All have been great resources to the entire team. Juan, Marie, Claudio, now Sandra, and others. Our GECs as well. All of the due diligence, support, feedback from the department. Board Member Miller, thank you. Please share our regards to the department. I'll lastly end on the transition efforts, and I think it was actually a perfect segue. So we still have about to answer, I think that was your question, Board Member Miller, we're probably 5%. And I mean, those are just my numbers. The small 5% of transition efforts. We just brought on Greenberg officially about 10 days ago. So hopefully we've given them several questions to answer. We work with Board Member Pages as well. He is aware. So we're hopeful by, I believe it's the second week of January. That's the time frame that we have given them. They'll get back to us. Hopefully it is just simply a name change. If it's that, that will be amazing from a time perspective. There are some other back-end administrative tasks that we have to handle as well. But if we get that accomplished, I think we'll be well on our way. So we're hopeful that it's only a name change. And of course, I'll keep the board apprised. I think you heard from Jason a little bit on the county efforts. I won't repeat all that you know what's still pending with the county. What I will say is, as you know, we've had solid conversations as recent over the past day or two. The county commission was originally slated to meet on December 18th. That meeting has now been canceled. They'll meet again on January 22nd. So we're hopeful that the county will move. They have the direction you've given me, and they have the next steps ahead for the county to consider. Last point, what's ahead? I'll just kind of shift to our February meeting thinking. Again, you all have seen all of the our tolling equipment. Claudio will give an update on where we are with our toll modernization project. There was a big expenditure that the board approved just several meetings ago, so we'll give an update on where we are with the software and implementation. And then also the AI policy. Several of you individually we've talked to about some feedback. I'll be reaching back out to you in advance of the February meeting as well. So if that, I think that concludes my report, or this portion of the report. If it's okay, Madam Chair, members of the board. Oh, yes.
I have some questions before you proceed. If you go back, the bond counsel, Greenberg, Trorig, that $300,000 allocation, is this for payment of the bond, bond counsel specifically? Is it a fixed price contract with them, or how's the bond counsel engagement working?
Yes, I can answer that, Madam Chair. Yes, it is with Greenberg. I think my signature authority goes up to $200,000. So depending what may need to take place over the next several weeks, we wanted to get this before the board so it will not exceed $500,000. They have not done any work prior to 2 meetings we've had maybe with them. So we don't expect that number will even get close to 500, but just in an abundance of caution, we didn't want them to start work and then we have to come back to the board if there's a pause in them moving forward. But it is with Greenberg, if that's the question. It's not with Lawson Huck Gonzalez.
No, I understand that, but I was just curious about this $300,000, whether that was the amount or that wasn't. I did not realize I was in excess of the $200,000.
Yes, okay. It is, and it is totally task driven. So that's important. Oh,
Board Member
sorry.
Miller.
Okay.
I think that was what I wanted to clarify. So my understanding when we spoke was that was a budgetary ceiling. That wasn't necessarily the expenditures planned, as it would be task work order driven. It just
Correct,
gave
yes.
us the capacity
That's right.
from a budgetary perspective
it.
in
Thank you.
case. Just so.
So
Yes,
My
Board Member-
apologies. I failed to. Yeah.
So it's going to be a drawdown on an hourly basis, right?
That
So
is correct.
They haven't identified exactly what the extent of the work that they're going to need to make do the transition, and they haven't. I think that was where the chair was going. Was it's not a fixed price for? Okay, this is the work. You identify the scope of the work, and then you say, okay, it's going to be X number of dollars. It's not like that because we haven't even identified the extent of the work, right?
That's correct. That's
so
right.
it's going to be a drawdown on an hourly basis.
Yes.
Okay.
And I have another question that I'm surprised there's no update here about Freedom Park.
Oh, it's coming.
It's coming.
Oh yeah. I got you. Don't worry.
Okay, got it. Okay,
I know we have it slated. Don't worry.
okay.
That'll be the second project
All
update.
right, perfect.
All right. So if you're good, Madam Chair.
I
members-
am.
Oh no, sorry.
Yes.
Going back to the Kendall Parkway,
Yes.
as we end 24, enter 25, at the pleasure of the board, I'd like to make sure that we have a very clear community engagement workshop plan in place. This could end up being one of the most expensive projects in the history of the county. Could. It could also be a very complicated and complex project. I want to make sure that from our perspective, we are as transparent, 100% transparent with the community. I like to hear communities' engagement, not just the road builders, but the actual people who use it and live around it. Very much want to hear about from the other other governmental agencies who are stakeholders in this process. And we absolutely need to understand what we're going to build, or we plan to build, and how we're going to pay for it in great detail, to the point where it becomes ad nauseum understanding. But there's no way that this board can move forward without having a very deep understanding and the community understand what it is that we're trying to do. So if we can get a plan for that, I would appreciate that, but it's up to you guys.
Yes, and Madam Chair, members of the board, board member Pages, you are 100% spot on. As we've all talked about, we have, which you don't see just yet, an outline of what we've prepared for board workshops, just to do exactly what you just said. On the project itself, what it is not, the financial modeling, tolling aspect, because that'll be a conversation clearly that will have to be a part of the conversation. Prior alignments and prior considerations that may be a part of the current now cost estimates that we now have. So it's a bigger conversation, but that's why you have given us the due diligence efforts to proceed. We have pulled prior, to your point, city resolution or municipal resolutions, support for and against the project. So you will see all of that when we are ready to come back to you in the appropriate public forum. I think what we've debated internally, and we've had some good conversation, is I don't think there's any way we can probably do a one-day Kendall Parkway conversation. So I think what we've landed on, I think potentially, is probably 4 workshops that are broken out over 4 different conversations. And then there's some probing questions that we will have for you, the board, to answer. Ultimately, landing on if the prior configuration makes sense, yes or no. If some portion of the prior configuration makes sense, yes or no. If you solely focus on one, let's just call it major project, I'm going to use your words. And then what about other parts of the system that also may need, support? So those are the questions that we're going to frame, and we've started to frame them already. So it is to come.
Thank you so much.
All right, and if you're good, Madam Chair, we'll now shift to the second part.
The informational items?
Well, no, not yet. We're going to shift to the second part of the conversation. So our director of
Properties.
yes, the big conversation on property. So GMX owned properties. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good morning, board members. So I want to just give a quick history. In the July meeting, in the July board meeting, we presented some parcels that were identified by staff for surplus and leasing. You approved those parcels to move forward. However, you did want us to come back with a little bit more detail on the framework of how we were going to do the disposition and leasing. And ultimately, authorization was given to the executive director, but we wanted to come back before we started that process to share with you our thoughts, our framework, and give you a little bit more information about the parcels that we are talking about. So again, today, for your consideration is the framework of how we are going to move forward. Why are we selling and leasing these parcels? Well, the parcels that we're disposing, they're no longer needed in the GMX World program. These were parcels that were bought for a prior project years ago. We held on to them per the policies until we knew or to see if anything else was going to develop through the TPO or through other needs, but through the years, that project just hasn't come back up, and really there hasn't been any projects or any needs identified for the corridor that would require these parcels moving forward. Having said that, maintaining these parcels has become a cost risk to the agency, a liability, public safety concerns surrounding vandalism, vagrancies, loitering, and just the constant maintenance of that. As far as the leasing piece of it, this is an opportunity for us to look at our current leases on some of the parcels that we currently have tenants on, and it's an opportunity to renew these leases to current market value. This is something we haven't done in some time, and now through the transition and through Tori's leadership, these are things that we've wanted to, that we've been asked to identify and move forward with so that we can come up to current market standards and values. So this is just a quick summary on the surplus properties. These are the properties that we've listed. We shared that with you in your booklets and through the executive director's report. I mean, ultimately what we're looking at is that there's an opportunity here to put back into the capital program close to $35 million and that could represent a small project. This is what the disposition of the GMX parcels would do. And we gave this little breakdown just so you have an idea of the history. The appraisals were updated now in October of this year. As I mentioned, all these parcels identified in green were part of the 11205 interconnector project. This is dating back to early 2000s when the predecessor agency was looking at county needs. There was a project identified back then to connect 836 and 112. It would run along Lejeune, and then once you pass the Central Boulevard portion, which is the airport piece, you had to shift the alignment over, and I'll go to the next slide, but you'll see the alignment here, the proposed alignment back then, how it shifted to the east. In order to comply with FAA glide path restrictions, so that required us to, disrupt a lot of the current warehouses in this area. You can see the ones in green are the ones that were purchased through advanced acquisition back in early 2000, between 2005, 2010. And then you can see how the alignment would shift back in and connect. And then there was another project back then that would connect 112 to 924 in the Palmetto. Moving forward, that project was eliminated from the county's regional plan by the TPO back in 2004, I want to say. So now getting into the individual parcels, and you'll see here, what we did was kind of identify and give you information on how these parcels were purchased, when, what monies were used. All of the parcels that were purchased were used with bond proceeds. Again, you see the general description of the areas. Some were warehouses. Typically, and we had this conversation with Board Member Biller, when a government entity buys parcels like this, you usually come in, clear out the land, and then you maintain the lot until you need the land. In some cases, you had warehouses that were tied together. This is a good example, 1120519. It's one warehouse tied to other warehouses, so you just couldn't come in and tear that down. There were also tenants at the time. Now those buildings are vacant, and these are some of the buildings that have incurred issues with loitering and vandalism. So again, it's presented a risk and a cost to the agency. 112-520, same thing. It's right next to the 119 parcel. The cost to cure has become insurmountable. So, selling these parcels as is what we're looking to do and moving forward. Parcel 193, it's a parcel right along, I think it's Northwest 28th Street. It's a small parcel. It does have a tenant on it on a month-to-month basis. The leases would go with the sale, and then the new owner would decide what to do with these tenants moving forward. And this is something similar that we've done with a sale that we did last year on a grouping. And I'll talk about the assemblage of a parcel that's coming up now. Parcel 169 North and South. It's a little odd-shaped triangle piece right by the right near the airport, by the railroad. This is a parcel that has received a lot of interest by the private sector as well as the public sector for parking and so forth. Updated appraisals on this have really increased. So today's appraisal value is like $16 million on this parcel alone. Hold on, I think I skipped let me go back. I skipped. There's a parcel there was one here that skipped, but there's a small piece that's an assemblage. It's like 4 or 5 parcels that are very small, but they're all together. And the interest by developers in that area and by other interested parties have made it so that selling that as a group is the most advantageous way to go, and we feel that that's going to promote the most competitive
Which one is that?
process. You know what? I may have accidentally. It's in your, it's in your, I don't know why it's not in the presentation. I apologize. We did some cleaning up, and I may have deleted that parcel, but it's a small assemblage. No, it's referred to as Group 2 parcels in your handouts, and you'll see it's a little corner piece right along Northwest 37th Avenue. So again, those are small remainder pieces that if you would try to break them up, there will be no interest. But putting them all together, it's more attractive for all the development that's going in the area, and we have received a lot of interest by developers to be able to use that land for future use. And I apologize for the omission there.
And which one is the parcel that the county and the airport are interested, 169 North and South?
The 169 North and South is the one that the county has shown a lot of interest in, but they've also reached out to in regards to the other parcels. So moving forward with the recommendation, what we want is to authorize the executive director to proceed with a formal disposition process of the parcels, which would include selling to other government agencies at fair market value or initiating a formal competitive process. The idea here is obviously to maximize open competition, and all agreements will come back to the board for final approval.
Yes.
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Nelson.
so I'm going from memory. Please help me. There are probably about 7, 8, 9 different parcels, I think, that has been communicated collectively from the county. I'll put a period there. But that does not, so what we tried not to do, what we did not do is share with you the who, because it's up to your discretion. This will allow for us to proceed with a process separate from what may happen in January. This will allow us to still go forward, seek maximum competition, and then bring something back for your consideration.
Didn't we have a prior agreement with the county for those 2 parcels, or wasn't there like an offer that had been made or a contract?
So on 169, there was a tentative agreement back in 22 for that sale at that time. Throughout the transition, they actually pulled back on the process, and then we didn't hear from them for some time. But since then, time has passed, the market has changed. As you can see, the appraisal from when we did that tentative agreement to now is significantly different, and I believe that the agency should move forward with today's information.
Of course.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
just to
Paul.
piggyback, and I'm going from memory, I think the prior number, 10 million,
Yes.
13 million, landed on 11 million, right? And
It was
did I get that right?
It was 11 million.
11 million?
Our appraisal back in 22, our appraisal was 11. They were in the 9 million, and we
There we
landed
go.
at 10.
Yes.
That's a verbal agreement. I don't think we had anything in writing in the time.
well, actually.
Actually, there
you're
was.
right.
There was
They
an
took it to
item
the
that was
board.
going to go to the county commission at the time, but there were issues related to the title due to the ongoing litigation. So they had concerns based on that. They pulled back, and then they chose not to move forward with that process.
Good. So we do not have a written agreement with them.
There
for
was no
that.
county commission.
Not have anything
No.
signed at this moment.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Allison.
So on the lease parcels, I wanted to kind of quickly go through the parcels that we currently have leases and tenants on. All of these parcels are parcels that were part of the DOT transfer. So these are parcels that are up against are adjacent to the roadway. These are, some of these leases were there prior to the transfer agreement. So the predecessor agency kept these leases going with some of these entities. For example, on the 874 parcel, this one 501B, the current tenant is Goodwill. They have a drop-off center there that they currently use a little corner of that corner piece. So those are the type of uses that they have. They're open land. There's no. All of our leases have restrictions for permanent buildings. They can't build anything permanent on them. All of our current leases and future leases have 90-day termination clauses. So those are the recommendations that you'll see coming up. But I just wanted to give you an idea of where and how these parcels were. So on A74, we have also 500B and C, where we also have a Goodwill tenant, but we also have Miami-Dade Fire Rescue that is occupying the southern or the northern corner piece. That one is currently a $0, a zero consideration lease. At the time that was done, it was done because it was government to government, right? I believe where our mindset is not there today, so we have recommendations on how we want to move forward with a couple of these $0 leases. We have 4 parcels along 878 that have that again through the transfer through the DOT transfer agreement. A couple of them have tenants on them. 2 of them are Williamson Cadillac. They use it for storage underneath the bridge. The bridge is at 878. One of the leases is a $0 lease with Miami-Dade County Public Schools, and then the other one is just an open lease that we haven't done anything with, right? So this is the area. They're basically areas underneath the 878 underpass. And then these are 2 parcels that are GMX owned. These were purchased for the 92404 project. That project is still in our books. That's something that we are planning to move forward with. Right now, we're doing parcel acquisition under the advanced acquisition process. What we're doing is coordinating with the Turnpike with their improvements along Okeechobee Road and along that area. We don't want to have 2 projects on top of each other. We are collaborating with Turnpike because they are building structural components, substructures for the future bridges that will connect to the Turnpike off of this extension that would take off of Northwest 138th Street and then provide a direct connection to the Turnpike in the future. So these are 2 parcels that we have purchased. We have received multiple interests from people in the area that would like to use it for parking, for just storage. We see that there's an opportunity here to do that in the short term until the project gets up to receive some non-toll revenue.
How would that connect to our system? I'm curious in that area.
So where you see the green right now,
Yeah.
so 138th Street is identified right on the lower corner of the screen. Back by 107th Avenue is where we would have a kind of like a ramp to come out, go north. It shoots across that open area of green that you see on the right side of the screen, and then it goes through that piece of the green, and then parcel 101, and then continues until we kind of curve over and tie into the turnpike. We can provide through the executive director, we can provide you an alignment of what that concept looks like.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I wasn't aware of that proposed project.
Again, so these parcels purchased with 2018 bond series monies. Again, they will be used for future use, but you can see the potential market value on these parcels. So on the lease piece, the recommendation or what we're asking is to authorize the executive director. First, we'd like to go back to the existing tenants because they've been good tenants over the years and renegotiate with them better leases. Right now, they're currently month to month. We feel that, we did that at the time because of the transition where we were at. What we'd like to do is enter into a long-term leases with some renewals, but bring them up to fair market value, right? So the idea here is hey, this is the analysis now. We've done all this work. We'd like to keep you as tenants, but these are the new terms, and if they would accept, we would enter into those agreements. If unsuccessful doing that, then we would like to come back and, with the authorization given, we would go out and do a competitive solicitation for leasing these areas because aside from the current tenants, we do receive interest from other parties that would like to use these areas. And again, all these leases would have termination clauses, permanent improvement restrictions. So at the end of the day, the uses will be limited, but they are advantageous to a lot of the vendors that we've received interest from.
And who negotiates his leases? Like, is it in-house that we do it? Or
We would do that in-house with our real estate consultant. But ultimately, we make those decisions, or we make those decisions, recommend to the ED, and then those will come back, as we stated, similar to the disposition properties. All these agreements come back to the board for approval.
Okay, thank you.
So the benefits to the agency overall, again, the anticipated capital revenue that we would get from the disposition is anywhere between 33 to 35 million, depending on how the competitive process goes. Anticipated annual revenue based on the revised market analysis is significant. So we're currently seeing about just under 200,000 a year in lease revenue. With these updates, where we'd be close to 850,000 a year. So that's a significant increase. And then again, we'd be eliminating a lot of the cost risks and liabilities to the agency by doing this, and it eliminates a lot of the public concerns. So as we stated, our recommendation is to authorize the executive director to move forward with the framework that we've laid out.
Board Member Miller?
I have a couple of questions. That's all
A
right.
few as well.
I'm going to go back to the sales. We did say that we had some prior communication with the county on several parcels. And while we did not ultimately conclude those discussions, I would imagine that we intend on continuing to further those conversations at fair market value, given our prior conversations, before we go out to the general public for those sales.
Say that again, Board Member Miller.
And
I heard that we had new appraisals done in October.
we do have new appraisals, and we always want to use the current fair market
Right,
value when
correct.
having those conversations. And just in my experience, sometimes these take a long time. We want to continue to at least have those conversations before going out generally. And the reason why I say that is, I think we're trying to generate some relationships and continue to generate those relationships. I think it's important that we at least, if we've had conversations with potential purchasers, that we at least continue to offer at fair market value for those purchases before going out to the general public. I was just wondering if that was our intention or we were just going out to the general public.
Would you like to share some of the conversations we've had about that?
I do have other questions, but I wasn't engaged in this
No.
conversation.
Understood. So it is a fair question. And I think the way the recommendation is worded, I think it allows all of that to happen. However, I think I've heard the spirit of the board. So that's why I pointed back to you. If there's some direction or new direction that you have, please share. So regardless of what happens between now and weeks from now, this will still be our process. Regardless of the who, whether it's a municipality, whether it's a county,
Right.
whether,
Okay.
okay.
I mean, is there a thought regarding that from us? Again, I still have some further questions if you want me to hold that question
Yeah,
until.
no, I have thoughts about this. I mean, I would like to postpone maybe certain properties until after the county board meeting discussion in January,
Okay.
because I think this is something that, especially some of the parcels, the ones that our executive director mentioned that are of interest to the county, that maybe we can postpone them until after.
I actually, unfortunately, and I often agree on many things, but on this one, I disagree. I think,
Perfectly fine.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're,
I think,
you don't have to agree.
I think the process needs to be transparent, which is a word I've used quite often today, but more importantly, has to be clear to everyone. I'm not sure I want to give the impression that we're doing even a fair market value as per it might be defined. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with doing side deals for certain properties with certain governmental agencies, excluding it from the open bidding process. I'm more than happy to give them opportunity for right of last
First right of refusal.
First right of refusal, exactly. But I'm not sure that I want to exclude any properties to be able to negotiate with the governmental agency, regardless of whether we want to do, be friendly or not friendly with them. And I have further questions on the friendliness of this prior board, but that's my position on that.
And I appreciate, even with a first right of refusal
Yes.
concept, it does allow us to continue the conversations
Yes.
with other governmental agencies.
Correct. Yes.
Which I'm fine with. So continuing down that same pathway, you talked about some of the leases being at $0 consideration for partner governments who are not using them, I assume, they're for public purpose. Right? That is a common lease term for public purpose as long as there's no commercial use of those properties. I know many governmental agencies lease to each other for $0. I think that's a pretty standard process because it is public purpose. We have to define and be comfortable with what public purpose means, but that's a pretty standard mechanism. I assume that's one of the things that we need to talk about as we move forward on some of those properties that you said were $0 consideration. And then there was one other item in our packet, which I believe we're not talking about and has been removed.
Yes.
Okay. So I know I'm kind of posing some questions to the
No,
to
good.
us.
Yes,
but-
it's excellent discussion, Board Member Miller.
Okay, so I don't know where to begin. So on these
Sorry, I threw too many
no,
things out there. I
let me
apologize.
start with the two $0 leases.
Yes, we can. That one's
One
the
is
easy
with Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. The other one is with Miami-Dade Public Schools. These were leases that were entered into quite some time ago. The predecessor agency board approved those leases at that time, and we've maintained that collaboration with those two entities through this time. They are for public. They are for public use only. I can tell you that the school board was using that lot for school bus parking. Over the last few years, they really haven't used it at all, which is why we've done the fair market value, and then we're looking at, do we want to continue to just have an empty lot at no dollar, or do we want to, reach out to them and say, hey, we're missing out on an opportunity here, and I think that we would like to go out to the open market. So that's a discussion that we'll have internally after you guys give us directions on, or I'm sorry, you all give us directions on framework that we're presenting. And then, yes, there were 3 parcels along 836 that we were
What about
looking.
the fire rescue one? Because you
So
had said,
they use that.
what do they use it for? Because you said that
Storage.
none of these properties were allowed to have any kind of a structure on
So
them.
they have containers on them, right? So it's not a permanent structure. They're container units. They use it for storage. They used it for training.
Okay.
And I think that's still the use that they have today. So again, it's going back to them and seeing if it's something that we want to continue to do at the current terms, or do we want to now explore new terms with the current tenant and feel them out, and we would do that working together with the executive director.
So when you calculate a current rental value, would it be for that public purpose, or would it be like a commercial?
For commercial,
tenant?
we use it for all the market rentals are based on commercial use.
And so what would, since they can't build a permanent structure, what it would be, like storage, parking?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, from,
'Cause-
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, ladies first.
Thank
Board
you.
Member Miller.
I just wanted to make sure that we had a discussion, because I do think that's part of how we decide to move forward with these leases.
Yes.
I think we've sort of come to an understanding on the sales part, but we can continue to discuss that. I do think it's important that we make the distinction between public purpose and commercial end use. Obviously, if it's a commercial end use, we do deserve to receive fair market rental for the property, but I think in the spirit of cooperation, I know FDOT shares parcels for no consideration with entities, public entities, for public use and for public purpose, because it's for the betterment of our community. So I realize FDOT is a much larger organization. We have a lot more parcels, but I think there is some value in that cooperation with our public partners for public purpose.
So is the purpose of this board to decide whether we want to continue the public cooperation for no consideration, or do we just want to say, forget that, we're going to just move to try to get the highest dollar for each parcel, or do we decide it parcel by parcel? And I think that's a decision or a course that we as a board have to decide, or is this something that we're going to delegate to our executive director or to somebody else?
Is it in the policy?
Board Member
we
Pages?
just signed? What does it say in the policy?
Just question for clarification. When you say $0, is there any cost that we incur in that process?
All improve
There's no taxes?
No, there's no taxes.
There's no insurance issues?
They have to provide us liability insurance.
Okay,
so
so
we're
zero-
indemnified, so that we are.
Zero means zero to us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I also ask a question about that? On the leases, are they as is? Will there be any improvements? And who's responsible for maintenance on those leases?
So once we enter into a lease agreement, all the maintenance would be shifted to the leasee. Again, we would be indemnified through insurances. Any approved improvements would be on them, but they would carry any restrictions, any conditions that we want to include in the leases would be part of that, and they would have to honor that.
Board Member Pages.
I'm perfectly fine with the zero compensation, zero fees for governmental agencies on a per basis, on an individual per basis, not on a blanket basis. If there's a property that, for example, Miami-Dade County Public Schools has just holding on to it and not using it, then that one we need to consider. We need to reconsider. And I think it is incumbent on us as the leaser to know what the property is being used for, regardless of regardless of whichever governmental agency it is.
Yes, I agree. And I think so the recommendation today is really the framework of how we want to move forward. And since all the agreements will be coming back, our intent was to do this for the leases on an individual lease by lease basis. So I believe that once we enter into discussions with the existing tenants or future tenants, all these agreements will come back to the board. All the conditions, all the provisions would be spelled out for your knowledge, so that you guys can all make good, educated decisions
So-
on how we move forward.
So when you come back to us, are you going to tell us, okay, this parcel that has been leased at no consideration for the last X number of years, we inspected the property, it has not been in use, so we've decided that this is the best course of action, that we're going to lease it or whatever. So you're going to come back to us with that recommendation for that parcel, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think what we would do is go back and do everything you just said, but then we would either have a renegotiated lease or have gone through a competitive process for that parcel and come back with the full information on what we did, how we solicited for that parcel and that lease, and give you the end result for approval in terms of a final agreement that is pending the board's approval.
But from what I heard from Board Member Pages, if the property has not been in use, I think going back to that lessee and saying, hey, do you still want the property? Of course they're going to want to say yes, because they're not paying anything for it. So I would not be inclined to do that. Is like if they haven't used it and we go there and we see it has not been in use, I would be more inclined to find the best economic value for it.
Correct.
And Madam Chair, if I could.
Yes.
Everything Juan just said is correct. I have wrote down direction, and I think I can hear all of you. So if this framework goes forward, I think I know what the right next steps are based on your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Alston.
I do have one more question.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay.
Yes, Board Member Pages.
We discussed the governmental side. Are there any properties, and I know the review of our leases just is not to these, I mean, it's a broader review, correct?
Yes.
Are there any properties that are egregiously undervalued, that we're leasing out to private entities of any kind?
Well, that's a very subjective statement. I think based on the analysis we've done.
It's a very clear statement.
No, I know. I think it's just that. Well, it is. I apologize. I think that based on our current where we are today and where the analysis is, there's a significant difference where we should be. Right. So we're currently taking in about $200,000 a year with these existing leases, and we could be closer to $800,000. So that's the difference in the market today.
But there's
And those are with the private.
$12 or $4 or $10 or $20 is an
It's-
egregious difference in pricing.
Yeah.
Is your question, are there more leases than these?
There are more leases than this, correct?
Actually, I think this covers all the leases we currently have.
Okay. And
And we're not really looking to do more than we have to. We don't want to be, we don't want to be a landlord per se, as
Right.
a government entity.
Property management's a
But,
difficult.
I agree.
but
I agree.
because of our framework, the way we there is an opportunity for some non-toll revenue. I think that this is an opportunity to get, that would help with operational costs in other areas. So in instances like this, we would come back with these type of recommendations, but it's not something that we would do across the board along the entire
Is this
system.
the universe of leases?
Yes.
It's the total universe of leases?
I don't think so.
No?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
There's a couple of other parcels that have some leases, but they have caveats on them. They have easements, they have access
Well,
where
those
you
are
really can't repurpose.
And I think those go to the question that Board Member Miller her third question that we haven't addressed. And we do have there's three parcels along 836 that have some unique issues that we need to work out because they either have like a private utility going through it, and there's an existing lease just to address that, but the whole lot is kind of open, even though we're using it for project staging. There's a couple of items on one parcel. There's like a license agreement that was tied that predates the organization altogether, right? But it came with the land. And then you have the Air Squadron There's an area there where GMX has a piece of it through the transfer agreement, but it's only good for the Aero Squadron piece, right? There's a lease on that. And I think we want to look into that a little bit more to see how we would move forward with those before we come back. So those were originally on the presentation. After looking at it, and they're a little bit, they're unique in how we're going to deal with those. Because to use your language, in some cases, the where we are and the market value could be somewhat egregious for a piece of land that only has use for one individual. And then what do we do if they don't want to do it? So those are things that we want to discuss internally, discuss with legal, so that when we come to you with that information, we have more answers than questions.
Okay, just for clarification, we're reviewing all leases
Yes.
Yes.
that GMX has, all of them.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could, Madam Chair, Board Member Pages, full board, for direction, I will also follow up with the full list of all the leases, which we have, but we're 95% there, as I think one of you asked me this morning, and a list of all the sales that you see in front of you. There were 3 that we pulled. The one I know that you just asked for, Board Member Miller, just for the record, so which is in your packet, board members, parcel number 83615-834B. That one is not before you today. So that is the parcel that both Juan and Board Member Miller were addressing. But yes, as my direction, I'll follow up so you have a full comprehensive list of both the sales side and the lease side, and then what's to come, because there are some FDOT owned items that may or may not come back to the board for consideration. Okay.
Just one other
Yes.
quick question. Are any of the leases, do any of the leases have any subleases currently that you're aware of, or no?
Not that I'm aware of.
I believe they should not be allowed, right?
I
On
gotta
our
look
lease
back at the
agreements.
current leases, but we can.
It's not allowed.
It's not.
Not allowed.
it's
The only
typically
one
not
that
allowed.
has a tie to it is the one with the firefighters, because those parcels are connected. To get to the northern one, you need to cross the southern one. So
Right.
no, that's why one's a training for the fire department, the other one Goodwill uses it. But since they only use a piece of it, people can traverse it.
And the house by the river?
That's
By the
a house.
bridge.
The house by the river is currently being used by the project staff. So once that project is completed, the 395 project, it'll be sold.
So it's not leased, it's just
No.
used.
No,
We have it. We are providing it to the joint venture team as a staging.
that's a
office
typical
area.
process, because otherwise you would have to be in the contract paying for an office space. In this case, we offer it for free of charge.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Board Member Miller?
No, I appreciate the more robust conversation. I know I had a lot of questions when we were reviewing this, so I appreciate that we are evaluating each individual parcel.
Yes.
I appreciate that we're gonna bring our leasing terms up to speed and bring our fair market value up to speed, whether it's a lease or a sale. I also appreciate the conversation about first right of refusal, especially if we've had conversations with individuals. But yes, we should maximize the revenue available to us. I understand not all of the leases may go through, and there is a property management cost to us to manage that parcel if it's not being used. But I think in the majority of cases, we're going to be successful, as property is difficult to come by. And even if it's a parking lot for someone, an adjacent property owner, there's value to them for that. So I appreciate that conversation.
Thank you. Yes.
Sorry, Madam
Mr.
Chair, I'll
Austin.
just try to conclude. I was trying to go back to the initial slide. That's okay. So if for the board's consideration to approve the prior executive director's report, and if you want to accept the framework that you've just shared with me, along with your direction that we have noted and it's documented, and that's how we'll proceed if you choose to do so.
Is there a motion to approve the executive director's report and
I've got a question before we move on. I just want, for staff's benefit, I want to make sure that they are clear on what the direction from the board is with regard to the disposition of properties and offering it to governmental entities first or not first, or and that, because I think that there, I don't know, are you guys clear with what the direction of the board is?
I think I am.
Because
Yes.
to me, it was a little confusing based on what the board member Miller first said, and then board member Pages disagreed with her, but then he said he would be okay with the right of first refusal, and to me that sounds like we're offering it to governmental entities first. It's exactly what board member Miller said initially. So I just want to make sure that we're giving good direction,
Well, let me
and
not
that
speak
you
for the
guys are
board.
not.
I think what we heard is that we want current market value.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I don't think that.
No, but that's a fair question. I want to make sure. The disagreement continues. I mean, it continues. Every property goes through a bidding process. Every property gets offered, and the governmental agency has the right of last refusal, first refusal, whichever refusal. Once we've arrived at a price.
So we are going to put. So in other words,
My understanding.
the fair market value is going to be determined by an actual bid process, right? It's not going to be determined by our real estate consultant who's going to do an analysis and give us a fair market value. It's going to, and then we're going to take that fair market value and offer it to some governmental entity that we know. That's not going to happen first. We're going to put them all out for sale.
I think that's a great question. Are we going to list the properties for sale for X amount, or are we going to put them for bid or for auction?
Well, I believe we would put these, we would go through a competitive solicitation where we would show what the current market value is for that property.
Correct.
And then we would solicit, and people and
Bid.
vendors would, or prospective bidders would bid against that number
And the fair market value is going to be determined.
by the appraisals that we did.
So we're going to do formal appraisals.
Well, we did formal appraisals. They were all concluded in October. I feel that those are still valid. I think appraisals are good for a few months. So depending on the process and how long it takes us to do it, we will determine if we need to redo an appraisal or not. But for right now, we have I
Can't
think,
delay
good
too much
information.
longer. They get stale.
Right.
And if I could just follow up, I understand your direction clearly. So now that you have approved the initial policies with the added direction, because I think the prior policy only included an ITB solicitation method, now that it's broader, not relaxed, to now include all solicitation methods, whether it's an ITN, which as I'm looking at the head of procurement, it sounds like, and I don't want to forecast, it sounds like that's what you've just talked about. So I think we understand where you are, and I think we know how to proceed.
I can see board member Pages like, they're sitting there thinking. Okay.
I'll turn off my light.
So, Madam Chair, if the board...
So is there a motion then to approve?
I make a motion to approve the executive director's report and approve the direction given now with regard to the disposition or renegotiation of the leases for the properties that were discussed.
I second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any nays? So the motion passes. So next, you're off the hook now.
For now.
Then stay there. Next on the agenda are informational items. The procurement report has been provided to the board with updated contracts executed and open procurements. No action is required by the board. Are there any questions on the procurement report? So hearing no issues, we will now move to the project updates. The first project update is our transportation technology pilot projects. And I would like to ask our Director of Toll Operations and Transportation Technology to present this item. Claudia, you are recognized, but you're not really recognizable.
Board member Pages almost asked the new guy in the room yesterday. I saw him. Yeah, I go through this every once in a while. So, good morning, board members.
Morning.
This is a project update on the transportation pilot projects, not just on one, but we figured we'd give you an update on some of the pilot projects that we're working this fiscal year. And so, um, as per the first page in our board packet, what is our mission? And in the last point, it says partner with stakeholders to deliver innovative technology solutions that support the agency's transportation needs. Right. So I was very happy that the board selected transportation technology as one of the four core functions, because I think it's critical to move the agency forward, especially in this new age of technology. So the projects that I'm going to be talking about are all in line with the master technology plan that we've put forth, and that identifies short-term needs, mid-term needs, and then long-term needs, or initiatives that we're monitoring. So these are just some of the ones that we were able to get going this fiscal year. So the first one I'd like to talk about is the independent toll lane auditing system. This is a project that we felt it was very important for us, and we are actually going to bid it out for an auditing system. Now, we do audits, just to be clear, we do audits on an independent basis every year. We did it for the past 2 years with Fagan, but it's a limited subset of samples that they do, right? It's randomized, they take X amount of transactions, and they verify with their own set of cameras. This is more of a permanent system that we're going to utilize, and it's going to be near real time, and it gives us a chance to basically audit the TransCore system on a near real time basis. We're still going to perform third-party audits, just because we should. But this is going to give us an insight of daily operations of our system. So like I said, we were originally going to bid this out, and in the approved operations budget, there was money. There was about $100,000 set aside to go and do this. But in our conversations in IBTTA, we actually sat down with CDM Smith, and we kind of struck a really good conversation, because they were looking for a partner to develop their tool, and we have obviously the data. So we struck a $0 consideration agreement where we will provide the infrastructure, the cameras, we'll install it with in-house staff, and they will develop the tool with our collaboration with us. And so we'll get the benefit of using this tool for free, and they get the benefit for obviously using our data to test real-world situations. So we're actually underway on this already. Wadi, who's in the back, who I'd like to commend. Actually, raise your hand, Wadi. Wadi and his team has done an excellent job. A lot of these projects that you'll be seeing here, they're installing in-house with in-house folks, and he's taken a great initiative to lead these efforts. So he's out there on bucket trucks and all sorts of things in the heat, doing themselves. So I really want to commend the team for that, because they're putting great effort into this. So basically, this system is going to be, in our opinion, we're really excited about this, because it's going to give us a dashboard, and we're going to be able to come in and audit any lane, any zone, any plaza that we'd like on a near real-time basis. And it gives us a good indicator if something's not working properly or maybe underperforming. So with that, and it uses machine learning, right? So CDM Smith's going to provide data scientists to verify and validate the information, the data that's coming. So basically, the system's going to marry the information that comes out of our toll system vendor, the raw data, and it's going to marry it independently, right? So the cameras are going to take images of vehicles, and they're going to be able to match with timestamps. Oh, I saw a vehicle, a red Ford F-150 with this tag, and it ties it with what the toll system vendor says, and so that's how it does the audits.
How long would it be, that agreement for the use of the free software?
So right now we're looking at 2 years. It's going to take some time to develop, but we look to already start. The cameras are already about 80% installed, so we're looking to start collecting data in January. And depending on until when the tool, because the tool needs time to learn, right? Machine learns. It's not really it learns. It's just basically repetitive nature of the system seeing and knowing. Okay, this means this. This means this. So by the end of this fiscal year in summer, I think this is going to be fully operational already.
No, but is there like an agreement with them
So
in
basically
writing?
there's so we're going to go into an agreement, and it's going to be the first year is going to be for the development, and then after that there's going to be a period of time where they're going to market this, right? So the idea is that we're going to get it at a reduced cost and continue the service, or at that point we can choose not to continue the service.
I know, but since they are also benefiting from our data and they can replicate it and sell it to other places, it would be good to have already established an agreement as to, this is for free the first fiscal year, and then
First
we're
year.
gonna get like a reduced price
Yeah, we're
going forward.
The only piece we haven't finalized is the reduced price moving forward. We've already established the first years. The question is, how much are you going to charge after that?
Right.
So,
Yes, and for how long?
Correct.
Right.
I mean, in the short term, we're essentially it'll give us a good insight of developing the tool, and maybe we'll make a decision to develop our own tool or put out a solid RFP to go out to get another tool if we don't continue with CDM Smith, because both parties have the opportunity to terminate the agreement at any point in time. Okay, the next one is the road equipment monitoring system. This is a system that again, Wadi and his team have been leading, and actually Wadi's the one that's really been pushing this, his own initiative, which is, I really commend him for that. But so basically this is a development to have an integrated monitoring tool to monitor all our roadside equipment. So generators, the AC units, with all the ride-alongs that we've done, you've seen all the equipment that goes along with the lane equipment. But it's not just lane equipment, it's all the ITS equipment as well. So instead of having physical eyes or folks going out in the field, this is going to be a system where if something goes down, we'll get alerts, and then we can dispatch the appropriate response teams. As you probably know, like we've talked about, these things usually happen at 2 in the morning on a Friday or something like that. So, but I'm very happy because this is something that's going to be tied together. It's all going to come to headquarters, and then on a morning basis, we can always check, and this is going to be one of the first things I do. You can check the health of all of our systems, and we can easily identify if anything is not functioning properly. This is a tricky one. This is the red lane violators. As you know, we have the red lanes along 836, both east and westbound. This is a shoulder, and it also is a bus only lane, right? For transit, for the transit folks, and also for the FIU Panther. Unfortunately, there's some folks that think that this is a lane and decide to use it during rush hour traffic. Now, while we don't have the ability to actually send them a violation, we can send them a letter, and we can work with law enforcement to identify the vehicles that are doing this habitually, because there are some habitual users that we know. So this system basically is also installed in-house. It's going to use machine learning. We're going to have cameras that are going to identify plates with OCR recognition, optical character recognition, and then we're going to use internal staff here to identify the vehicles through our registration system, through the DMVs, and then send them the letter, and then report these to law enforcement to have maybe traps and things like that.
Why can't we charge them? Why
The
can't
only
we-
state currently that has the ability to send the violation using video tolls is California. It's E470. Yeah. So we would have to work with legislation to actually change the legislation to
and we
allow
couldn't
that.
charge them a special toll, like a $500 toll for whoever uses that red lane?
I would love
mean,
to. It's just
it's a toll.
legislatively we can't.
I believe we would have to go through rulemaking in order to have a fine for using the bus-only shoulder. And we've never gone through rulemaking for that. There's a whole process associated. Plus, no agency that I'm aware of other than school zones currently has the authority to issue violations based on camera enforcement. So the legislature has only given us the opportunity to monitor with cameras for tolls, not violations, but for tolls themselves and school speed zones. So we don't have the authority to issue violations, or we would have to go through rulemaking or some other process in order to do some sort of toll violation for the use.
Correct.
And we could not set a special toll for that lane.
We have to go through a process, and I think
If I may, through
Yes.
the chair, so there is statute. I believe it's 316 that talks about shoulder violations. So to Claudio's point, with this technology, we can identify habitual violators of using a shoulder and citing that statute, but working with law enforcement to do that. So we would refer
So
these
it-
violators to FHP, and using that statute, they can have the ability to enforce that violation. But that's the only tool we would have
Have we
right now.
checked with
How-
FHP?
However, FHP has to be present for that violation to occur.
Right.
Right, that's
So
what I mean.
You can send
They-
the
they won't rely
information
on
to them.
video
They
evidence
cannot
either.
rely on video. They have to be present to visually see the violation.
They gotta go testify in court.
Well, they're going to have to set up, and FHP monitors our facilities. They would just have to monitor our facility like any other facility and
Right.
go through that process.
Right, but to Claudio's point, we would work with them and perhaps set up some type of
Traps.
trap, you know?
Well, when you know at a certain time you have the certain habitual users, you can start setting up and you can indicate to the officers where they could be, where's the highest areas. But this also serves a second purpose because I don't want it to be like if we really can't do anything about it. The red lanes were installed as a pilot project with FHWA. We were allowed to do it via a pilot project, and one of the requirements under that agreement is that we have to report analytics about usage and violation, etc. Right now, we currently don't have really a way to measure the violations. This is going to give us a good tool. So this is 8 locations. Again, this is installed with in-house forces. Currently, we're at 50% of the infrastructure already installed. So we're going to be able to actually comply with the requirements of that agreement that we have with FHWA. But at the same time, it's going to give us some data to provide to law enforcement to hopefully stop these violators that continue to use it.
As a follow-up to Board Member Miller's issue on rulemaking, is that something that we want to do as a board and pursue that avenue with the legislature or not?
So, Madam Chair, great point. And all of you are correct on all the prior points. So this has come up, and Board Member Miller is correct. All agencies are dealing with this. It would allow, or the legislature would need to give some authority to the agency that currently does not exist. So if you would like, I am happy to explore that. Currently, as committee weeks have already started, and the formal process or the formal session begins the 1st of March. I'm happy to explore that for the agency.
Wouldn't that be something that under the Expressway Act, all the different expressway agencies around the state would like to be on board with?
So I'll just openly say this. There are pros and cons of the legislature and the department, and I can't speak for FDOT, of opening up the statute specifically that relates to GMX and other toll authorities or agencies. Once you open them up, all discussions are in play. So I'll just say that.
Yes, Board Member Miller.
I think I'd like to see these in place, see us start generating some analytics, see us working with FHP, and see if we can reduce some of those violations through the courses that we already have before we make any other sort of further decisions about it. I'd like to see us kind of use this and
This tool will give us the data, right?
Right,
So
right.
if we
And then
do
we'll know.
ultimately go to the legislation, then you'll have, this is how many violators it might not be worth it, right?
Right.
You might not have as many, but
Thank you. And you expect to have some data by when? A year from now?
no, less than that. 50% of the cameras are already installed. Like I said, Wadi's been doing a great job installing them. So we look to be fully operational by April. So we'll have good data by summertime.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So
If I can ask a quick question, this is Blanco. Claudio, are we making sure that some of these technologies are adhering to any upcoming or in progress artificial intelligence policies or other technology policies that are in place at the moment?
yes, that's a great question. So we, as part of the policy that will come back to the board early next year, it addresses this. Right now, we're just doing the infrastructure, but yes, obviously the AI technology that's going to be used in the cameras are agnostic, and they don't discriminate in any way, shape, or form. So it'll be in line with the policy that will be reviewed and approved by the board, hopefully early next year. So the next one that we're working on is the LiDAR. We currently have a tentative agreement with Kira Solutions to implement a testing for wrong way locations. Currently, they're used with cameras. We're looking to swap some of these out with LiDAR, which is kind of the new technology coming out. In fact, I had a vendor reach out to me yesterday, and we're going to have a conversation after this to potentially convert one of the existing locations that they currently have. It's Golfcom to a LiDAR to test and be able to see the difference between one and the other. So this is definitely going to have attention. I'm happy to say that there was 66 wrong way events last year and 0 accidents. So clearly they're working. They're doing what they're supposed to. So the idea is to enhance some of these locations and then potentially test this technology so any future locations we can develop proper scope for it.
Claudio,
Yes.
so this system detects somebody who's going the wrong way on the expressway, and what does it do? It
on the
notifies law
on-ramp.
enforcement or somebody to be able to go and track these people down before they get into an accident?
So you're leading on to my next
tell me
one.
at the
Yeah. So currently the way it stands, the way they're installed, we have 36 locations installed currently. So if a driver comes on to an exit ramp in the wrong direction, the camera will identify it and it'll start flashing. And it'll say, hey, wrong way, wrong way. All the RPMs are illuminated going the wrong way. If it gets confirmed that, because most like the 66 will stop, make a U-turn and go the right way. If they continue on and they go into the confirmation zone, then images are taken of the vehicle in series, and they're relayed to the traffic management center, which you've seen, right? And the notification goes out to the operators there, and they dispatch one FHP, and B, the alerts get displayed onto the dynamic messages sign on the highway. The problem with that is that if you're a driver going on the highway 70 miles an hour and you just happen to be in a location where there is no DMS or you didn't look at the DMS, there's not a lot of notice that you're going to get, which leads to what I'm going to get to in my last slide. So I'm very excited about that one. That's how it is right now.
Claudia, do we have data on which ramps
Yes.
are worse, or not the ones that they keep going but turn around and come back?
Yes.
Do we have that data?
Yes.
For example, the one Killian and right before the
874?
874.
Yes.
That one is unaligned.
Yes. So the way we implemented the wrong way program was first and foremost identifying the areas that had issues.
Yeah.
Because remember, we have also cameras from the ITS.
Yeah.
So the ones that we implemented first were the potential most critical areas. The ones with crash locations are the ones that had most issues with people coming the wrong way. So we do have that data. So the way we're implementing this is exactly that way. The
And you're
ones
able to capture the ones that people are turning around.
Yes, we have all that data,
Thank
right? Because everything gets reported into SunGuide, and SunGuide creates an event of every single time that something happens. That's how we know 66 events have gone up the wrong way and turned around. And by the way, we have the pictures, right? So when we do our testing, you have the pictures of the vehicle coming, braking, and then turning around. Some of the issues that we have right now are people going the wrong way that are not actually going the wrong way. It's like landscapers. And so we're very adamant about telling our landscaping folks, please don't go the wrong way with your mowers because you're triggering the alert system. And then everybody gets dispatched and to realize that it's just a mower. So this is one that if you attended actually board member Miller is the only one that hasn't gone the ride along, but you guys all saw the testing benches that we have that Wadi has with his team on 17th. And this is one of the technologies that we're looking to replace. Currently, a lot of the data that gets fed to the traffic management system is done through MVDSs, which is microwave vehicle detection system. But that's kind of an old technology, and they're actually getting kind of phased out. They're really expensive. They're about $14,000 each, and when they break, it's $14,000 to replace them. Some of these units that you see here using LiDAR are $5,000-$6,000, and they're much more accurate than the MVDSs. So what we're doing is we're testing these. We're currently testing 2 locations to ultimately, if they work properly and they report all the data that they need to do, which they do volume, speed, and occupancy, which all that data goes to the traffic management center, and that populates a lot of their maps to identify key locations and areas that have incidents or anything. So once we get all the testing done, the idea is to come out next year with a project to replace all the MVDSs with the LiDAR system. So again, that's the purpose of the pilot project. And lastly, this one is to address your concern. This is an enhancement, and I'm really proud of this one. I think this is one that's going to be very, very beneficial. We've been discussing for years now how to alert drivers, right? There has been whole discussions that Juan and I have attended multiple automated vehicle summits and we've met with different car manufacturers about how do we disseminate information to drivers instead of just doing it through DMSs. The problem is that most of the car industry hasn't standardized in the way they deliver information. And there's some agencies that have done that direct connection, and it really hasn't worked because every manufacturer changes their vehicles and it doesn't work with the next car. So the idea is to partner up with the major navigation applications, because it's very difficult to get people to download an application just for the specific purpose of getting alerts for GMX, for example. So the idea is to partner up with Waze, Google Maps, Apple Maps, etc., the big players, to disseminate information. Right now, if you have Waze or Google Maps, if there's a disabled vehicle, it'll give you an alert. If there's a police officer, it'll give you an alert. If there's an accident, etc. So the idea is to tie this in together to our system. So if there's a wrong way driver and that the wrong way system detects that there's a vehicle that has confirmed it's continuing up the ramp, it'll disseminate all this information to these applications. So if you have your Waze open, your Google Maps open, or any of these applications open, it'll tell you instantly, hey, there's a wrong way driver, be careful. And so I think that's very beneficial, because if you didn't see the DMS sign, but it's much more likely that you get an alert on your phone or on your car navigation system that says, hey, be careful, there's someone coming the wrong way. So it's going to be rolled out very softly. They are actually also partnering with the Turnpike. So it's going to be rolled out with internal staff. If you would like to test it, I'd love for you to participate. And then once all the kind of bugs and kinks are worked out, then it'll be pushed out to the general public. So
I
that
love everything
concludes-
that you guys are doing. That's amazing. Thank you. I have a comment on something not so advanced or technical. I wanted to report something that was on the bus lane, and I needed to get the number, the star, like to call the headquarters. But I was on the fast lane, closer to, to the left. I just could not see, the signs are blue, and I could not, like from that lane, I could not see the number to call to
Okay.
report it. Finally, when I told my husband, move over there so I can see the number, and I called, they already had someone on their way. But from that lane, I just could not see the sign. And I don't know if
So-
it's just me, but
We can look at that. We can.
I don't know if you ever got
Those are
any
standardized
complaints
signs,
about that.
but
Because they're blue, and it's
yeah.
not, the letters are not really
Yeah, they're-
visible. They don't.
Yeah, we
they
can
don't
look at
stand
those
out.
and maybe have them stand out. Maybe change the reflective sheeting. Star 347, by the way. But we can't put many signs on the left. Well, because of the buses as well, they would hit them.
No, right.
So we can potentially make them bigger
The
and more
visibility is
visible.
not good with the blue and the reflective. Yes, Board Member Miller.
I think you're asking to, it might be the reflectivity of the sign, but the physical sign
It's part of the
coloration
MTCD,
is a requirement of
The blue?
MTCD.
It's
So
MTCD requirement.
We can't
Sizing and
modify
The size cannot be bigger either.
MTCD tells you the sizing, the spacing, the colors, etc. It's very prescriptive.
Yeah,
very prescriptive.
It's the manual for uniform traffic control devices. So
Oh, sorry, yes.
we're kind of governed by those
MTCD.
standards.
Engineer speak.
Thank you.
Yes. With that, if you have any other questions, thank you.
Thank you. So now we're moving on to our second project update, that it's the long-awaited Miami Freedom Park project. And I would like to ask the Director of Engineering and Operations, Juan, to present this item. Juan, you're recognized.
Thank you so much. So again, our December update of our GMX's coordination with the Miami Freedom Park folks. I wanted to go ahead and just show you the proposed development of the site one more time. I'm sure you've all noticed that there has been significant advancement in the construction of the stadium. They have a lot of the structural columns up now. So I think that has really prompted a lot of eyes and a lot of questions over the last several weeks. So like us, we've been, reaching out to the team to see where we're at with certain events. So since the last board meeting, I do want to highlight that through the TPO, Board Member Pages, as his role on the TPO, they adopted a resolution for the TPO to develop scope to look at and analyze connectivity and analyze accessibility in the area, especially and how it's going to impact Miami International Airport, the Miami Intermodal Center, as well as Miami Freedom Park. So this is, again, an item that was introduced by Board Member Pages through the TPO and was adopted. So the TPA is working on that scope now, and we're going to be working with them to see how they want us to participate in those roles. The Miami Freedom Park traffic analysis was submitted to all the stakeholders on November 27th, just before the Thanksgiving holiday. GMX staff is currently reviewing it. They have asked that comments from all the stakeholders be submitted by January 11th. So we're working to be able to meet those dates. We're also going to be coordinating with DOT and other agencies to make sure we're all aligned with what we're reviewing and what they're proposing as improvements or any impact mitigations to the system. So you'll see more on that as we develop our reviews, and we'll identify and let you know of any impacts that we see from their studies. We had a meeting with them in September. Board Member Miller, through the DOT, established a stakeholder meeting. At that time, they had presented some schedules that weren't really distributed at the time. But we've been kind of asking to see where they are with their schedules, because we should have been, based on what we had seen initially, we were expecting to start seeing some designs for the roadways that they're going to be proposing ingress and egress out of the development. We haven't seen that yet. My understanding through some conversations that we should maybe start seeing those in January. But again, because they have such an aggressive schedule, the sooner we can start commenting on that, the better. As it relates to the GMX facilities, there's one entrance being proposed off of the Lejeune Collector Distributor Road, which is a GMX operated roadway. So we would look at those improvements and make sure that they are aligned with what we feel is the appropriate measures to handle the traffic, not only for the events, but for the development that they're proposing. And again, Miami Freedom Park has expressed that they would want to be completed with their stadium by early 2026. I don't believe they'll be completed with the entire development, but their goal is to have that stadium ready for practices for the World Cup. It's not going to host any events. I believe what they're looking for is just to attract fans and be able to showcase any practices for the teams that will be playing locally throughout that month period of the World Cup. So again, our approach is, collaborating with other government partners, including DOT and Miami-Dade County, making sure that we all have a consistent approach to our reviews, our comments, and that we're doing what's within our purviews to do. Our focus is to ensure that our ramps and freeway segments along 836, after the park is open, is operating at level of services that are equal or better than the existing condition. Better is an optimistic view, but at least equal to where we are today, at the very least. And then making sure that we're alleviating that through the Miami Freedom Park development, that any impacts that to the GMX roads are being alleviated through their proposed improvements. So those are the things that we're going to be looking at. There are a series of initial comments, I guess, proposed improvements, approaches that they've identified in their report. But again, it would be premature to put those out there right now, having not reviewed the entire report. So once we do that, we'll put a summary together for the board through the executive director so that we can keep you in the loop on what's going on.
So you've had this report for about 2 weeks around Thanksgiving, but they already won our feedback by the first week in January. If I get that right, we have holidays, Christmas, New Year's, a week, probably nobody's working. Before GMX submits, our views or proposals, I would somehow would like Mr. Olson to get back to us so that we know what our agency is going to say. Can we go back to the slide with the map, please?
Sure.
So I drove by and I saw a new roadway that was opened. It's an FDOT road, the one that they already opened. And I was really surprised because I was not even aware that the traffic studies had been submitted. And I was wondering if they had gotten permission, from FDOT as to that road. And my concern with the way that they're moving is that there's a saying that says it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And I wasn't sure they even asked for permission to open that road. And I'm afraid that they're going to do the same thing with our access road on the other side. So I don't know if you have any comments.
So I'll be happy to address that. The department has issued a temporary access permit only. It is for temporary access to the parcel for them to be able to bring vehicles in and out. It is not an improvement that is permanent, and we have not approved any permanent access from 14th at all. This is a temporary construction access permit. That's it.
So they did ask for permission
They
before.
did.
Okay. Yes.
And for the record, they have not asked us for any access.
Well, in that picture,
Permanent
they
or
still show,
temporary.
in that picture, they still show the two bridges or two axes. So I don't know about that either. When do you think that we can have like some feedback on the traffic report that they submitted?
I'm hoping that in the next couple weeks, we should have at least an initial report on our end on what we've identified on the GMX roads, and then we have had some email correspondence with the DOT traffic folks to ensure that we're all kind of doing our respective reviews. So I think right now the way that it's being handled through the different stakeholders is everybody's focusing on their piece, and then we're going to collaborate together overall to make sure that we're all aligned with our reviews and our comments.
Is that alignment taking place at the TPO board member pages?
I was going to follow up on that. Correctly, you're looking to align it for the purposes of GMAX. But TPO is looking at it from a multi-agency perspective.
Yes.
And I am also very concerned on the timeline, on the schedule. It blows my mind that they're asking for feedback by beginning of January when we're through the holidays. TPO has not even, I don't even know if they've even begun their study process.
No.
As I said it before, and I'll say it again, and this is why we asked for a TPO item. This is being built next to one of the largest airports in the country. And we don't know the impacts that it is going to have. We just don't know. So yes, there might be impacts to egress and ingress or whatever, but there could be impacts to our highways, to all the contributing roads. So I caution that, and by the way, I want to make it clear that the traffic report is a developer's traffic report. It's a developer's traffic report, right? I want to make sure that we're very cautious and our response is not final. It's still subject to a lot of other data input from other parties, all parties, and that this is really not a one-time. We give a feedback in January and we walk away. This is an ongoing process and subject to a lot of revisions as we get additional data.
So to address the timing, right, because I don't disagree that the timing of their submittal, where we are today with the holidays and people taking time off and so forth, in the interest of cooperative, in the spirit of cooperation, we're going to do our best to try to meet those timelines. But once we're approaching those dates, we're not going to do anything hastily. We're not going to rush just to meet a deadline. We want to make sure that we review everything, and if we need more time, we will definitely be asking for it.
And to follow up on the chairman's request, whatever recommendation goes out, I think the board would like to see that prior to release.
You can quote me and tell them that their procrastination is not my emergency. So, you know, just because they are setting that deadline, I don't think that that is right. That I think we need to see the data before we make an intelligent response.
Through the chair. Sorry.
Go ahead. Remember,
Do we know, how much do we know about the developmental plans around integrating public transit, whether it's Metro Rail or, and also I heard that there was a pedestrian bridge that they were looking to connect from the
Yes.
intermodal to that.
I believe that is the public transit component. They are planning, based on the drawing you can see on the top right-hand corner of the map, there is a proposed walkway that would connect the intermodal center to their facility. That permanent location has not been identified. We have not had any discussion to date with the Miami Freedom Park folks if they're planning to cross over our facility or if they're planning to somehow incorporate it into the existing parking structure for the Sheraton. Like, we don't know that yet, right? So we haven't had that discussion, but they are planning a pedestrian connection from the intermodal center to, and then if it does impact our facility, they would have to show us how that was going to work, and we would have to work through any impact mitigation requirements that we would impose for that.
And that's obviously a very big part of this project, because this is not going to be done just on cars driving to the event. It has to be done through transit, through public transportation. It has to be. That's one of the items that I've requested and is being done through the TPO study.
I think what this map doesn't show, and related to the parking, and you're right, they are limited in the amount of parking spaces that they're going to be putting in, at least for everyday use. But on the right around on the left side, the middle, where you see those practice soccer fields or whatnot, that's actually a parking structure. I believe, based on FAA, because of the proximity to the airport and FAA restrictions, I don't think it's higher than 3 stories. And that would mean that they would probably be limited to 2 levels, because the roof is what they're going to be using for that, concrete and artificial turf surfaces. Based on unofficial conversations, game day parking would be, they would be utilizing open field areas that you see on the map for excess event parking. But the everyday parking is going to be limited to that structure. And that's going to be for the commercial retail development portion of the Miami Freedom Park.
I worry about this project.
yeah, we all worry about it. Yes, Barrera.
So, and I appreciate that update. FDOT is also doing their due diligence. Obviously, we only have one facility involved, which is 14th, which you noted had a temporary access point on it. It has been my goal to make sure that we have regularly scheduled meetings with all parties. They've been at FDOT to date. It doesn't really matter to me where they're held, but it is important that the county, the city, GMX and FDOT meet together to discuss our concerns and discuss how we're going to best approach this. We have a number of ideas, GMX has a number of ideas, and we want to make sure the developer understands how we feel we can best move forward on ensuring the management is handled to the best degree that we can.
Say that again. Have you met with them, or you're asking to meet?
We have had already several meetings. We have another one proposed, I believe, in January. I've been working with the developers, their agent, to set up yet another meeting to make sure once we've all submitted our comments that we come back together. We do a page turn, we go through all of those comments, and then they start talking to us about the individual improvements and what we believe from a TSM&O, Transportation System Management and Operation, process that we should be adding to make sure that we have good information for those individuals who are driving to the facility, that there are DMS boards, ramp meters, whatever the case may be, that we need to have that helps mitigate some of those traffic issues. So we've already had an initial discussion about that, but I'm sure we're going to have a more robust discussion after we start talking about the individual roadway improvements, because we're only two sides, right? We have a canal with the expectation that there's going to be a bridge, and then neither of us actually own or manage the eastern roadway, right? So that's yet another party that needs to be engaged in the discussion. So we're trying to make sure everybody's in the room together to have those conversations.
You mentioned that GMX has some ideas or comments. Like, I'm curious, what are GMX's position on this?
So we're going to be looking at, again, the how they're going to be accessing their development through the collector distributor road, which is basically the ramp that comes off 836, Lejeune wraps around, and then that's what takes you either back to Lejeune or to the airport. Right now, they're proposing a little slip ramp, which is almost right where you got to make that decision to Lejeune, the airport, and now them. My initial comments to their representatives have been that we don't feel that that's going to be sufficient to wait till that moment to make that decision. We feel that extending that entrance through an auxiliary lane to provide a better queue of traffic and it's going to be limited, right? Because they're not going to be able to take another lane all the way back to, like, let's say 57th Avenue, because there's too many restrictions. But at least enough of a queue that you're not disrupting the flow of traffic and the decisions that have to be made on that collected on that CD road, which is the intent of a CD road, is to, put traffic that needs to make choices away from your regular flow. That's why that section of roadway was designed that way. So you have Lejeune traffic, kind of uninterrupted going north. You have the people that want to make those decisions coming off the expressway to go to the airport and back on separate, so that you make the flow of traffic better through that area. We want to make sure that they don't negatively impact the function of a collector distributor road. So adding a little bit more of a queue instead of a slip ramp would probably be, I feel, is more appropriate. I'm going to say probably, I feel is more appropriate. I believe that's what we will ask them. And basically, if they want a permit from GMX, we would demand that they do something more, enhance that improvement to make that traffic better.
But have you talked to them about the bridge?
They haven't approached us about the pedestrian bridge yet. We're waiting for that to happen. We don't want to, obviously we don't want to jump the gun on that. Again, they haven't formally submitted their designs on the collector distributor road, so I can only go off of what I see now. But having unofficial conversations with some of their design representatives, I think that this is what they're going to be proposing, and I've already expressed my objections to the current design.
Thank you.
The review also includes.
Hey, Chair Cancio.
Sorry.
Yes, Vice Chair Perez.
Yeah,
You're
I had a
recognized.
question. I know. Yeah, thank you. We had we to this meeting invited them to present, or is there in the future? Are we going to be hearing from them to present on the project?
So to answer that question, we did reach out to them and let them know that we would be giving an update from the GMX point of view, and we did invite them to come and have a representative. I failed to look back and see if there is a representative from the Miami Freedom Parks present. We'd like to acknowledge that now. If not, they basically, I never heard back from them, so I don't know if nobody's standing, so they didn't come, but they were invited.
Board Member Pages.
Two questions. At the last meeting, you suggested that the city of Miami might be moving employees to the site. Is that something that's still ongoing? Because that changes a little bit of the utilization.
So we've heard, and I believe we haven't found a formal city of Miami resolution, but we heard that in the top northeast corner of the development, that has been set aside for the city of Miami, and that there are plans being reviewed by the city to bring in their building department, building and zoning department to that location, which would basically constitute their permitting offices. That would bring a lot of traffic to the facility. I don't know what percentage of business that brings to the downtown area, but seeing what it does, countywide permitting, that's an everyday function, and it does bring a lot of people to those departments. So we do anticipate that you would see a high volume of traffic to that corner of the piece, but it would impact mostly 37th Avenue. We've reached out to the city to try to get confirmation on that, but we really haven't received anything other than they're looking at it.
But the traffic studies that the developer provided wouldn't take that into account.
They're not.
All right, so I think one of the things, and obviously this is up to the multi-agency party, all parties need to come to the table, palm up, and be very clear on what it is, or hands out, or whatever the expression is, on what they want to use this property for. Because there's a lot of moving parts here that we're not sure that has an impact. The other question is, do you know if there's any, as part of the analysis or part of the traffic study, are there any restrictions to timing of usage of the stadium? Or, because that has an impact also on traffic. I mean, having a game at 3 o'clock in the afternoon could be a problem. 8 o'clock, maybe not so much.
We haven't seen any, in our initial review, we have not seen that.
Yeah.
So I don't believe they're addressing time of day use. At least I haven't seen that yet. If they do, we'll make sure that we.
All right, I would look to see for that. Thank you.
They submitted their own traffic study, and we have to analyze it. But would an organization like the TPO conduct their own studies for traffic, or?
Yeah, normally, and Board Member Miller probably knows best, but everything I've seen has always been that the traffic studies are done by the developer, and then with a reputable engineering company, and that's it.
But from what I'm hearing, that traffic study is not allocating for 37th Avenue traffic, or?
The Freedom Park study would address their impacts to 37th Avenue. It will not address the city's development impacts.
Oh.
So they will consider the entire network, and they have limits of what that network includes, which includes portions of our roadway, portions of Lejeune, probably going all the way back to, I think, State Road 112, 37th Avenue. I believe their influence area was Flagler to probably the canal, as far as I'm concerned. And so all that area is being looked at. I don't want to speak for the TPO, but the direction that was given to them was to develop scope that would analyze those impacts. Just speaking from what we would probably do is they will take the Miami Freedom Park development study. They will look at what how they model those areas using the current SERPM models, and they would create their own traffic analysis of the area that would look at the impacts to the airport, the impacts to the Miami Intermodal Center, the impacts to the roadways. It will kind of be like a validation, per se, of what is being presented, and it would be looked at holistically, along with the coordination, hopefully, and I would figure it would be also coordinating with the department as well as GMX and all the other entities. But once we see that scope, they're developing the scope. That should be coming back. That would come back to the TPO board once they have that ready, and I believe we will all have an opportunity to look at that once it's ready.
Tori, you've looked at or had discussions with their executive director.
Yes.
On what? Okay.
So we just had a discussion 2 weeks ago now. Time is escaping me. So yes, it's my understanding that there is a scope that's being developed. We have not seen it yet.
I'm sorry, who's executive director?
My apologies. The TPO. Sorry, the TPO. We met with them 2 weeks ago. It's my understanding that a scope is being drafted that will come back to the TPO board based on your direction at the January meeting. subsequent to that meeting, that's when we should know what the next steps are. But we have not seen the scope just yet, but I know it's in preparation.
Can I
Yes.
ask a quick question? And forgive me for my ignorance on this, but are we also looking at a potential, maybe an express lane with or designated, or potentially widening the 836 as a?
No.
No. Where? Okay, just.
I already asked, and I was told that.
Any impacts that they have on, as a result of their development, would be, any improvements to mitigate those impacts would be on them. Neither DOT nor GMX nor any of the stakeholders would be forced to make improvements based on their development unless there's already been some kind of agreement that predates that. But to date, we have nothing in place that would force our hand to do anything as a result of their development, and we wouldn't expect to.
Board Member Miller.
I just wanted to clarify on the traffic study. Yes, it is created by the developer. That's how all traffic studies are generated. However, we do have conversations before they start to generate that. We actually have a methodology that we developed in concert with them. So it's not like they do it in a vacuum. GMX, FDOT, in theory, the city of Miami, Miami-Dade County, all provided feedback into their methodology for developing the traffic study. The outcome, yes, is developer created, but it's not done in a vacuum. And there was something else that I was going to point out, and now I don't remember.
But isn't it customary to have those studies done before a project of this magnitude is approved? Or do they come after they start building?
So normally, the process is that the study occurs and permits are issued for the infrastructure improvements. It is unusual that you would start building. This is a massive development, though, so I'm sure it was, the point was it was being done in concert. But their development would not include, and that was the other thing I was going to remember, their development wouldn't include the city's proposed improvements in the area, what if they were going to build a facility for their staff, because that's not part of their development order. However, if the TPO is going to evaluate what the development, this development order contains, or this development contains, and the improvements that are already included in SERPM, that is probably included as a future use and would then be included. But this developer wouldn't be responsible for another development's traffic impacts. Thank you.
That's a good point.
And did the city of Miami transfer ownership of the property to the developers or to the football club, or did they retain ownership? In other words, if they're going to build out the little northeast corner for their own purpose and they still own the property, I don't think they're going to do a traffic study.
Board Member Peterman, I'm not sure of what the final agreement between the city and the developers are. I know that there was highly.
They probably won't.
It was a very visual process in the public eye. I believe the city of Miami owns this area. I believe they have a lease agreement with the developers for the construction of the stadium and for the development use. And they're going to benefit from, I guess, tax revenue or something like that. So.
Well, thank you. This was a very good discussion. Any other questions or comments? Board Member Blanco or Perez?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the board,
You're recognized.
thank you so much. I would like to take a brief moment to do something that we've tried to keep a secret, but I think I was told someone may know already. But we want to take this time, members of the board, and I know that we have most of the GMX team that's assembled behind me, to recognize our CFO. She has been a longtime steward and fiscal watchdog for the agency. She has done an amazing job over these last 20 years. So if you would join me, I'm going to ask Marie Schaefer to please come forward. I think I was told she got the alert that we got this for her, by the way, Madam Chair. So Marie, on behalf of the board and all of the employees that are here, we present this to you for your years of dedication and service. Presented to Marie Schaefer, CPA, in appreciation of your outstanding commitment and dedication for 20 years of service to this organization. Thank you so much, and of course, you know you will be definitely missed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. If I may, Chairman. Very blessed to be part of an organization for 20 years. Some good years, some bad years, and a lot of life lessons, I think. But I do want to, take the moment to say I've been very fortunate to have some really great employees work for me, be part of this organization in all departments. And we've had some really good consultants as well. So I think much of my success is because of a lot of people who have supported me and the organization. So again, thank you very much for that.
You're going to be missed, as I said to you privately before.
Thank you.
We thank you for your service. 20 years in one place of employment, it's a long time, and you're going to be sorely missed, but you're part of this family, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you to the board as well. Thank you, Tori.
And if I could, Madam Chair, members of the board, as the team is still assembled, at the close of this meeting, we'll have a special small token of our appreciation just to say thank you to Marie following this meeting. So I will pause there because I know she does not like the public pomp and circumstance. But again, Marie, thank you so much on behalf of the board and all the employees assembled here this morning. Thanks, Marie.
Thank you. Do you want to make should I move to the announcements? Okay. So our next governing board meeting, February 13th, 2025 at 9 a.m. Board members, are there any questions, announcements, staff direction, final comments before we adjourn?
This is Vice Chair Perez. I had a question for Tori, and more of a just kind of an alert as bills in the legislature start getting filed. Just if you can, just update us or as anything that may impact the agency, or if you know of something that's kind of brewing. Obviously, I know you would let us know, but in particular, just anything from, and Board Member Blanco mentioned it earlier, AI bills that may come up that could affect what we're doing or not. But if just want to make sure, since bills start getting filed, we keep an eye on all that stuff.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Mr. Ralston?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Yes, and I apologize. I know in the update, I think I glossed over the legislative piece. But yes, we are tracking all of the early steps of the legislative process. The committee weeks have started. I think the members of the legislature have gone through Legislator University. So they are getting trained. And if we are called, we have not been called for any information requests, any speaking requests, or to appear before any committees. If so, I will definitely alert the board. And I believe if there needs to be any travel to and from Tallahassee, you have already done that. But yes, we have the various tracking mechanisms in place. If there are any transportation, infrastructure, or toll-related type bills that may hit, we have those alerts set. So I'll make sure the board is definitely fully abreast.
Thank you very much. Any other additional comments? Hearing no additional comments, I adjourn this meeting at 11:21 a.m. Thank you, board members. This meeting adjourned. See you in the new year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Take care. Merry Christmas. Happy